Alright, what's going on guys? Today I want to talk about something that sets Sekiro apart from the other Souls games. And no, I'm not talking about the combat. This is something much deeper and more special that you might not have noticed on your first playthrough. This is something that sets the tone for the entire game and gives it a core meaning to its journey. And I think the secret to what sets it apart is found within the intro cutscene. And I'm going to break it all down for you guys. So let's take a look at this scene from the intro cinematic.
そして戦場で拾われた狼は修行の末熟達の忍びとなった。
So there's a lot to break down just in that scene, and there's a lot of really key details that set it apart from the Dark Souls intro cutscene. And I think the fact that these are included really set the tone for the rest of the game and give it a charm that Dark Souls didn't manage to capture. So let's break those down. So the first thing I want to get at is when you start Dark Souls and see that intro cutscene, your character is in this dilapidated prison, he's sitting in a corner all by himself locked in a cage. Now that just screams powerlessness. Now let's contrast that with the Sekiro intro cutscene. When we first see Wolf on the battlefield, he's sitting around a bunch of dead bodies and he's a lone survivor. An owl comes up to him and he's a kid, but he has a sword in his hand. An owl cuts his face with the sword and he doesn't even flinch. Now that whole scene embodies power. Now let's also not forget about the little statement that was added at the end of that. It says he trained relentlessly and indeed went on to become a master shinobi. So at the beginning of the game we're told that we're this master shinobi, this master warrior that's going to be more powerful than everyone else around us. Now if you notice, that's the exact opposite rhetoric that we were given at the beginning of Dark Souls. Now you may be thinking, isn't the whole point of Dark Souls that we start out powerless and over time become powerful enough to take down the challenges that stand in our way? And the answer is yes, and Sekiro is too, but it's done in a different way. So the power structure in Dark Souls focuses around weapons and items that you can collect along your journey in the game. But Sekiro is different. You start Sekiro with all the equipment that you need in order to beat the game. And I mean that by, as soon as you beat the tutorial, you end up at the sculptor's hut and he gives you the prosthetic arm. Now that and your sword is all you need to beat the game. You don't get a new weapon, but you do get new prosthetic tools, but that's kind of like separate stuff that you don't have to have in order to beat the game. So the power journey in Sekiro, if it's not weapons and upgrades, then what is it? Let's take a look at the rest of that cutscene and break it down.
狼の忍びはすべてを失っていた。育ての義父も守るべき主も。
忍びよ、目覚めてください。あなたの主のために。
So I think the ending to this cutscene does a beautiful job at explaining what the power structure is in Sekiro. It's not your weapons and upgrades, but it's something intangible, and that's your will. So I'm not sure if you noticed this on your first playthrough of Sekiro, but when you see Wolf at the bottom of the Ashina Reservoir, he's in the same slumped over pose as your knight was in the Undead Asylum. But he's not bound by a cage or a brick wall, he's only bound by his will to go on. And so when you start your journey as this nihilistic version of Wolf who's given up on everything, you'll notice that the NPCs around the game are calling you cowardly, unmotivated, and weak. And so when you start the game also, you go up against enemies that you have the power to deflect and kill in like 1 or 2 shots. So it communicates to the player that you're not necessarily unable to kill the enemies, but you have to relearn how. And Wolf as a character has to relearn how. And when you first go up against Genichiro in the tutorial, he acknowledges you. And so it tells the player that you were this Master Shinobi at one point, but the player has to develop the skills and learn the motivation to be the Master Shinobi that Wolf once was. And so that's how From Software beautifully created this power structure that's not based on loot and rare weapons and power-ups and things that you would see in normal video games. And I think it's an amazing thing that they managed to accomplish that. And there's a little tiny detail that reflects this in your battles with Genichiro. When you first battle him in the tutorial, you'll see Wolf reach for his sword, but he kind of fumbles to find it. And that's emblematic of his will at the beginning of the game, of how it's just defeated and unmotivated and unfamiliar with what it takes to become a shinobi. And then at the end of the game in the final battle against Genichiro, you see him reach for his sword and instantly, without even looking at it, he's able to draw it and have it at the ready. And that is emblematic of your will completed and your familiarity regained as a shinobi. And so to wrap this up, I want to give one more aspect that reflects your journey through will throughout your game. And that's actually the environment around you and the weather. So I'm not sure if you noticed this on your first playthrough, but when you start the game, it's nighttime, and it's kind of in this twilight sense. When you fight Genichiro in the Silvergrass field, it's nighttime and there's bright moonlight almost to the horizon, signifying that a day is on the way. And this is also emblematic of an incomplete will that is going to take a journey to regain. But once you get to the dilapidated temple, you'll notice that it's sunrise outside. Now this is signifying a start of your will and journey, and a blossoming of the character. And you'll also notice that in your midway battle with Genichiro atop Ashina Castle, you'll notice that the sun is high in the sky and it's about midway through the day. Now this is signifying that your will is under development and in the process of its journey and cycle. And the next significant battle against Owl, back atop Ashina Castle, you'll notice that the weather is sunset, or the time of day actually, and this is meaning that your will has gone through its peak of development and is in the stage of defining itself. Now when Wolf had to make the choice to follow Kuro or Owl, that was the moment that defined his will and settled it within him. And if you'll notice at the very end of the game in the battle against Ishin, you're back to that nighttime, and now this is the close on the journey of will throughout the game of Sekiro. And so it's this power journey and story of development that sets Sekiro apart from Dark Souls. And I just really love the fact that they took the time to implement these subliminal details and create this beautiful story and journey that's not really on the surface of the game. So guys, thanks for watching, and if you did enjoy, be sure to drop a like on the video and subscribe if you're not already. That'll really help me out a lot and encourage me to make more of these videos. So let me know down in the comments what were some more subliminal things that you noticed in the Souls games or Sekiro or Bloodborne. But that's going to be all for me, and I'll catch you in the next one.
私のためそなたは戦ってくれた。捨ておくことなどできるものか。狼よ、我が血と共に生きてくれ。